What's up, homies? Today we're going to go over a quick warm-up for the spine, and this is something that you could do, before some of your big lifts, like a deadlift or a squat or some Olympic weightlifting. But if you just generally have a tight back, or your back gives you trouble, you have some really acute spots that feel like they're cranky when you go into flexion or extension, this is just an awesome quick routine that you can do every day to really get your spine to work like it's supposed to. And when I talk about a spine working like it's supposed to, that's 24 vertebrae that each contribute a little bit of movement to globally get the spine to go into flexion, or all the way into flexion, or side bending, or twisting, or all that stuff. And really, more importantly, just the flexion and extension, because that's the fundamental movement of our spine, and that's what allows lateral flexion and rotation and all that cool stuff that our back does. So if you're limited just in flexion or extension, the rest of that movement that your spine can do is going to be limited, and that's generally what causes problems. So we're going to start like we always do, which is just doing some cars, but we're going to actually do just the capsule cars for the spine. So that is just flexion and extension. There's many ways to do this. Today I'm going to show it to you standing. So I'm going to squeeze my butt and quads just to keep my pelvis from moving, so I can really isolate just my spine movement. We wrap the shoulders. This is just going to prevent any extra scapular movement instead of our thoracic spine moving. I'm going to start by trying to round just my thoracic spine, slowly curling my way down into spine flexion, and I'm slowly going to curl my way back up into spine extension, and we're going to do two more like that. And as I'm doing this, I'm really trying to get my whole torso as far forward over my hips without letting the pelvis move. That's where that glute tension and quad tension comes into play. As I come back into extension, I'm just trying to lean everything back. I'm thinking about lifting my rib cage and sternum up towards the ceiling, keeping my abs nice and tight, and then one more into flexion and extension. Okay, next we're going to do some low-level pails to increase our capacity for flexion and extension. Now, if you have a back that's cranky, or you have some spots that are just acutely uncomfortable, it's important that you work at a really low level here until you have really good segmentation of your spine where you can control each part of the movement, the cervical, the thoracic, and the lumbar. We just want to keep the intensity down a little bit. So think about maybe a 1 on a scale of 1 to 10, if 10 were the highest intensity. So here we're going to get in a quadruped position and round the back. So I'm going to tuck the tailbone and tuck the chin. You want to keep in mind here, we're not trying to get extra movement by protracting the shoulder blades. I'm going to try to keep my shoulder blades relatively neutral and just round the back. Try to find as much as you can round your back. We're going to go into maximal flexion just to see where it is. And then before we start actually working, I'm going to back out of it just a little bit. Here, I'm going to get some really big ab tension, really tension through my whole body. And I'm going to start to try to push my hands forward and knees and feet backwards. You could think that if it was a split in the floor, we're basically trying to push that thing apart. So we're going to take a couple seconds to ramp up to a 1, maybe a 2, and then hold that tension. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Slowly relax. You might have noticed when I said we're going to go into that 100% of flexion, I didn't back out of that at all. Depending on how much you've trained your spine, if you've trained your spine a lot, you have good segmentation, you should work in that end range. That's fine. If you're just starting this though, once you find that 100%, you can back out of it just a little bit, kind of an imaginary, say 80%. So again, near that end range of flexion, start to build tension as you're pushing forward and backward. What you should be feeling here is lots of tension in the abs. And if you feel anything in your back, it should just be some light tension through your spine erectors. There shouldn't be anything really acute. It should feel kind of like general tension in the back. And slowly relax. We're going to do that one more time. Take a breath, build that tension through the whole body again, and start to push. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Slowly relax. All right, so we're going to do relatively the same thing now for extension. So to start back in that quadruped position, we just go into the end range of extension. Again, keeping in mind we're not trying to pinch the shoulder blades together. We're keeping our shoulder blades relatively neutral. Tailbone back and head back. My whole back is in 100% of extension. I'm going to work here, but if you're new to this, I want you to back out, say, an imaginary 15%. So for instance, that would be my end range here, and I back out just a little bit. Okay, again, big ab tension. So we take a breath, build tension through the whole body. Now we're going to try to pull the floor back together. So my abs are the primary driver as I start to pull. Hold that tension. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Slowly relax. Big breath, big tension. Start to ramp up to that 1 or 2. Hold it. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Slow relax. Big breath, big tension. One more time. Start to pull and hold. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Slow relax. Okay. So really what we're doing there is a couple things. The pails and rails contractions are increasing our capacity for flexion and extension and building up strength near that end range. And when our joints are not trained, the normal state of our joints is that they get weaker in their end range. So we're weaker here versus that more neutral spine, weaker in extension here. So we're really building up capacity all the way through those ranges. Now we're going to go through some movement to practice moving individual parts of our spine, and then we're going to put it together to move our whole spine in what we call spinal segmentation. So I'm going to take my shirt off. It'll be easier to see my back here, even though I do have that extra medium shirt on. Okay, so we're going to start with our lumbar spine, and we're just going to work our way up. So if you are comfortable in knee flexion, you can get down here and rest, and that feels comfortable on knees. This is a great position to do that in. If you found that that is uncomfortable, you just need to bend your knees less. So we just come forward on our hands and take some of that knee flexion away. What I'm basically going to try to do here is move my spine from my belly button down. I'm going to try to not let anything else above that move. So because my knees feel fine going into flexion like this, I'm going to sit upright here. We're going to tuck the tailbone and tilt it back. So you can think about just the bowl of the pelvis here is tipping forward and backward. You can make more tension by squeezing the arms in tight to your upper body. We're going to go through 10. It's about 3, 4. I'm squeezing against that end range at a level that feels comfortable. 6, 7, 8, 9, and one more, 10. Again, I could have been doing that same thing here, creating that big ab tension, trying to tuck and tilt my tailbone back that way. It's another good option. Okay. Now I'm going to go for just the thoracic spine. This one's a little bit trickier. If you can get into deep knee flexion like this, probably the easiest way to set up is just to tilt the tailbone back. All right, I'm going to kind of lock this lower stuff in extension, and then I'm going to try to flex and extend my upper back. So that's what this would look like. I'm actively keeping that lumbar extension, and I'm rounding down and rounding back up. Okay, now we could do that with our arms wrapped all the way around to really block our shoulder blade movement. That's good if you tend to compensate with your shoulder blades. So we're going to keep going here. It's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, one last one. It's 10. Okay, another option here, if I couldn't go into knee flexion like that, I'm just going to come forward on my hands. You got a couple extra variables to pay attention to here, so sometimes this feels a little bit harder, but it's definitely nicer on the knees just because it doesn't require so much flexion. So again, I'm going to tilt my lumbar spine into extension, get my abs as tight as I can, and then I'm going to try to round my upper back. And as I do that, I'm going to let my elbows bend, and then as I try to arch my back, I'm going to straighten my arms out. But I'm not pushing with my arms. I'm trying to make my arms do as little as possible. It's just important that you let the elbows bend as you come forward, because that's what's going to allow your thoracic spine to move. If you keep your arms straight, you may move forward and backward, but that's going to be more likely just shoulder blade movement. Our body already likes to do that. We're actually trying to break that compensation and not encourage it. So anyway, we did our 10 thoracics. We're going to do some what we call Pez dispenser cars, which is just flexion and extension of the cervical spine. We're going to do that with a little extra gravitational load though. So I'm going to start on my hands and knees. I'm going to pull my chin straight back. I'm like essentially pushing the back of my neck here towards the ceiling as I tuck my chin. Chin gets tucked, down towards the collarbones, all the way back up. It's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay, we're going to put that movement together in what's called a segmented cat-cow. That's where we're trying to go through full flexion and extension, moving one component, the next, and then the next. This is way harder than it looks. It seems like it might seem straightforward. It took tons of practice for me to be able to do this, so don't be discouraged if it feels hard in the beginning. Just try your best and it will get better and better. So we're going to start back in our quadruped position. In this case, I'm going to start with just my lumbar spine. So I'm just going to make it easy on myself. I'm going to go all the way into flexion. Again, keeping in mind what your shoulder blades are doing. We're not trying to help protract, we're trying to keep the shoulder blades neutral. And I'm going to start to tilt just my tailbone back into extension. And we're just trying to move as slowly as possible. I mean, really, the slower you do it, the better. And I'm incrementally working my lumbar spine into extension all the way up, trying to get through my thoracic spine, not letting my head or neck move yet. Once I'm all the way in thoracic extension, I'm going to lift the chin. Now you can start at either end here. It's a little easier to start back at the tailbone again. I'm going to start back with my chin. Chin gets tucked. Now I'm trying to round my thoracic spine, but keep my lumbar spine in extension. And then I slowly work into lumbar flexion. I'm going to do 2 more of those. Moving through my lumbar extension. Working my way up to thoracic extension. And cervical extension. Back down. Neck. Fighting to get that thoracic spine to move. This is the hardest part for me. You may be able to see that part of my back moves a little bit left. And then lumbar flexion. 1 more for good measure. Keep trying to breathe through this. It will surprise you at how fatiguing it is. All right, 1 more. Keep breathing, keep breathing. Okay, last thing we're going to do for good measure is just our regular old spine cars. So go ahead and stand up, flex those quads and buns, arms all the way around, round all the way into flexion, rotation, side bending, extension, rotation and extension, all the way back down, around to flexion, reversing. Remember, you want to kind of imagine that your hips are stuck in concrete. So we're trying really hard not to let any of our hips move, just the spine above it. Tree trunk legs. Keep going. 1 more in each direction. And back. Last one. Okay, your spine should feel very nice right now. Thanks.